This week was a turning point on most of our major issues in the 2020 Florida legislative session. Today, I'm going to be covering auto insurance, medical damages, insurance bad faith, and more. Hello, I'm Paul Jess, Executive Director of the Florida Justice Association. Today is Friday, February 21st, 2020, the end of week 6 of the Florida legislative session. The session is now 2/3 over with only 3 weeks left. Although it would be premature to declare any issue dead, with 3 weeks left to go, we are at the point where we can begin to predict which issues are likely not to pass this session. Happily, 2 of our biggest defensive issues are on the list of likely not to pass: insurance company bad faith legislation and the limitation on medical damages issue that we call LIMP, for limitations in medical payments. Unfortunately, it now appears that responsibility-based auto insurance to require bodily injury liability coverage also faces roadblocks ahead. That is because this week was the last meeting of the Senate Banking and Insurance Committee, and all 3 of those issues are on bills that have not yet received favorable action in that committee. We began the week disappointed that Senate Bill 378, Senator Tom Lee's legislation to modernize auto insurance to a bodily injury liability standard, was not on the agenda of this committee. However, also not on the agenda was Senate Bill 924, Senate Brandis's bad bill that would allow insurance companies to treat their insureds in bad faith. Yet 3 other bills that were on the agenda of that committee made for a very dramatic day on Wednesday. Among the bills that were on the agenda of that committee were Senate Bill 1668, this year's Senate version of LIMP, also Senate Bill 478, the so-called peer-to-peer car rental bill, and Senate Bill 1828, the litigation financing bill. The LIMP legislation was quietly temporarily postponed, or TP'd, with most of the work on that being done with the legislative champions behind the scenes. That was great news, as that bill would have permitted evidence of a private database to be admitted into evidence on the issue of a plaintiff's medical expenses in cases where the plaintiff had health insurance, Medicare, or Medicaid. The peer-to-peer car rental bill, Senate Bill 478, would allow people to rent their cars to others without any bodily injury liability insurance requirement. It was also TP'd during the proceedings, leaving only Chairman Doug Broxton's litigation funding bill to be heard for a vote. This final bill, Senate Bill 1878, would strictly regulate the companies that provide non-recourse funds to plaintiffs in personal injury cases. The FJA is not opposed to the regulation of these companies, but we have been attempting to get a problematic discovery provision amended out of the bill. The bill requires that a plaintiff who receives funds from one of these companies must disclose that fact to the defense, even without a discovery request. Of course, that would signal to the defense that the plaintiff was desperate for cash and susceptible to a lowball settlement offer. Because other bills on the agenda took up a lot of time, there was not much time to go through the amendatory and public testimony process on Senator Broxton's bill. Since it was the chairman's bill, Senator Broxton turned the chair over to his vice chair, Senator Darrell Roussan. Senator Roussan and the 2 other Democratic members of the committee, Senators Taddeo and Thurston, soon showed their mastery of legislative procedures by blocking a motion that would have cut short testimony, debate, and the amendatory process. These 3 Democrats functionally defeated the bill by virtue of the many amendments that ended up running the committee out of time. We do not know if the Senate will schedule another meeting of the Banking and Insurance Committee. Without another meeting, or unless the bills are withdrawn from that committee, all of the bills I've discussed today will not pass. An issue that is moving in both chambers, however, is a bill that would give car dealers immunity from vicarious liability for their loaner vehicles. Senate Bill 1738 by Senator Brandes passed the Senate Judiciary Committee on Wednesday. Please read the message from FJA Legislative and Political Director Jeff Porter for a more in-depth look at this week's action and what we might expect for next week's legislative activity. Special thanks to the many FJA officers and members who were in town this week to assist in the lobbying effort for issues affecting you and your clients. We want to thank FJA President Leslie Kroger, FJA President-elect Eric Romano, FJA Treasurer Tiffany Faddis, FJA Secretary Curry Pagic, FJA past presidents Paul Anderson, Xander Clem, and Dale Swope. Also thank you to Richard Chait, Tom Carey, Jeanette Carey, Jim Guarnieri, and Chris Ligori. If you can, please consider making plans to join us for a few days during these last 3 weeks of the 2020 legislative session to ensure that our civil justice system remains strong. Thank you for all you do for your clients and to all Floridians, and thank you for being a member of the Florida Justice Association.